There are wars that end on paper, and wars that never end in the bones of the men who fought them. Korea was one of those, a land of razor hills and frozen nights, where breath became ice, metal became pain, and courage had to be chosen again and again, sometimes every minute. They didn't have the luxury of perfect plans, warm boots, or easy victories. They had each other. And when the line bent, when the perimeter cracked, when the world narrowed to a trench and a scream, these were the men who held, not because they believed they were heroes, but because someone had to stand. Carl Sitter, East Hill, Chosin, November 1950. It started with cold, not the cold you complain about, the kind that steals feeling from your fingers, locks a machine gun solid, turns a step into a slide and a hill into a nightmare. November 1950, Northern Korea, Chosin Reservoir. Captain Carl Sitter receives his orders: take the company up East Hill, take the ridge line, relieve the battered men already clinging to it. The Chinese are moving south. The enemy isn't a rumor anymore, they're closing like a fist. The climb is brutal, one step forward, one step sliding back. And all the while, bullets cut the air. He reaches the top and does what leaders do. He builds a shape out of chaos. An L-shaped defense, foxholes dug, positions checked, men looked in the eye. Then the night tears open, flares ignite the sky, and from the darkness comes the chant, "Marine, you die. Marine, you die." Wave tactics, screaming, boots in snow, shadows multiplying. They hit the line and part of them breaks through. Now it's close enough to smell. Grenades in all directions, hands grabbing, bodies colliding. Sitter's command post is overrun, and the fight becomes hand-to-hand. Fragments strike his face and chest. Men fall beside him, 1 second alive, the next second gone in pieces. And in that moment, the truth arrives like a blade. Human life is fragile, short, breakable. His men look to him because the world collapses. "Captain, what do we do?" Sitter answers with the only honest thing left. "You better fight, or we're never going to get out of here." So they fight. They hang on through the night, stitch the line back together at daybreak, and when he needs reinforcements, he calls for everyone: cooks, bakers, supply men, anyone who can hold a rifle and fill a foxhole. A second night, another furious counterattack. Mortars, machine guns, automatic fire, the hill ablaze. A machine gun freezes. Someone kicks it, curses it back to life, and still Sitter moves from hole to hole, checking men, steadying hands, forcing courage into trembling voices. He's wounded again. He refuses evacuation. Because he's the only officer left. He starts with 220 men. He's down to 60. But he leaves no one behind, and the men know it. That knowledge becomes armor. Faith becomes force. Later, far from that hill, he is called to see a commanding general. He expects punishment. Instead, coffee, kindness, a calm voice saying the impossible. 10 days from today, you will receive the Medal of Honor from President Harry Truman. Sitter can barely breathe, because in his mind he didn't do anything extraordinary. He only did what the moment demanded, while fear pressed its hands around his throat, and he learned the real definition of courage, not the absence of fear, but the decision to act anyway. Dwayne Dewey, Panmunjom, April 1952. Corporal Dwayne Dewey arrives in Korea after hard training, and by April 1952, he's leading a machine gun squad near Panmunjom. 80 men against what looks like 700. The math is cruel, but the machine gun doesn't care about math. Dewey takes charge. He lays down a continuous barrage, so constant a comrade warns him he'll burn out the barrel. When the unit is ordered to pull back and tighten its perimeter, Dewey finds a rock, bare cover, thin mercy, and keeps firing. Then he runs for ammunition. He returns, and the war answers him with a grenade. It detonates behind his left heel. Shrapnel tears into his leg and body, slamming him to the ground. A corpsman kneels beside him, starts cutting off his bloody pants, and another grenade rolls in, as casual as a stone. Dewey doesn't hesitate. He yanks the corpsman down, warns the squad, and then he throws himself onto the grenade, shouting, "Doc, I got it in my hip pocket." The blast lifts him off the ground. Later, in a bunker full of wounded men, he lies through the night with morphine in his system, wondering if he'll bleed out or if the enemy will reach them before morning. He survives. Doctors discover he also took a bullet in the stomach. Eventually, he returns home, and on March 12, 1953, President Dwight Eisenhower presents him the Medal of Honor. Eisenhower looks at him and says, "You must have a body of steel." But steel doesn't explain it. Brotherhood does. Ernest West, Heartbreak Ridge. 1 week after basic training, Ernest West is already on the front lines. His body is trained, but it's his heart that saves lives. Heartbreak Ridge, a patrol, a plan to take prisoners. A bunker watched for days. West is told to be the point man. He accepts. They reach the bunker. Quiet, too quiet. And then, all hell breaks loose. Grenades roll down the slope, between his legs, past him, into the men behind. Explosions throw him down. When he regains himself, the enemy comes over the hill like an ocean. In the confusion, West scans the damage. His commander is hurt. Others are hurt. Men are falling. West makes a decision that will define the rest of his life. He orders the able-bodied to withdraw, and he begins carrying the wounded out, one over his shoulder, fire snapping around him, 2 carbines, one in each hand, until he has to drop his friend, cover him with his own body, and then rise to fight again. He brings his commander back. Then he realizes more are missing. So he goes back, and back, and back again. 3 more times into the heart of the fight, 1 man at a time, dragging brothers out of death's reach. Only afterward does someone point out he's bleeding, burned, injured. West is almost surprised. He didn't think he could get hurt. Because in that moment he wasn't thinking about himself at all. When he learns he'll receive the Medal of Honor, his first instinct is to refuse it. He insists everyone was equal, everyone would do the same. He says he isn't a hero. He says it was brotherhood. We all got back. We didn't leave nobody. And the lesson in his voice is simple. Be good to people. Treat people the way you want to be treated. George O'Brien, The Hook, October 1952. A strategic hill. A Chinese force overruns a marine company holding it. O'Brien's unit is in reserve. Chilly night. He asks for coffee for his troops. Trucks arrive. Not coffee, grenades. That tells you everything. They move forward under heavy fire. Artillery, mortars, weapons so loud they feel like the sky is being torn open. The old trench line is gone, wiped out. Stragglers are scattered. O'Brien commandeers whoever he can. And in the middle of the storm, he pauses and prays, asking for courage and intelligence to guide the men. Then he stands up and shouts for them to follow. He leads an exposed assault under heavy fire, shot in the arm, knocked down, gets back up, charges the bunkers, throwing grenades, firing his rifle, leading for 4 hours straight while evacuating wounded. When relief finally comes, he refuses medical attention until he is sure none of his wounded are left behind. Later, he says the medal isn't his. It belongs to those kids who never grew up to be grandfathers. He holds it in trust. James Sharp. The moment innocence ended, James Sharp begins as a young soldier unsure if he could kill another human being. Then he finds 28 American servicemen in a ditch, hands tied behind their backs, shot in the head. And something inside him changes. He decides he will never become a prisoner if he can help it. He rises through the ranks as leaders fall. He learns weapons, tactics, and the brutal rhythm of waves. Enemy boys, sometimes only 12, 13, 14, sent forward screaming behind a bugle, armed in the first wave, unarmed in the next. Meant to pick up rifles from the dead. He explains the foxhole system, 2 hours sleep, 2 hours scanning the dark. He explains how to throw a grenade like it isn't a movie. He remembers the Chinese attack like an anthill kicked open. He runs out of ammunition and for a moment runs with the enemy just to live. Later he survives an artillery blast that should have killed him, saved perhaps by a mysterious replacement soldier who appears and vanishes like an angel, never recorded. War doesn't just test the body, it rearranges the soul. Joseph Say, the hill you don't get time to understand. Joseph Che is 25, leaving his wife in tears at an airport. He arrives as a replacement in 1951 with very little idea what's going on, except he's about to find out the very next day. A mission to recapture a hill they lost. He doesn't even know why the hill matters. There's no time for that. At the bottom, gunfire rains down. Bodies roll back down the slope. Men behind step on fallen comrades just to keep climbing. Say is shot in the knee, doesn't even remember it. He's the only officer left, not wounded or dead, trying to keep everything together. They reach the top, at the cost of 30% of the infantry, and the enemy unloads everything. A grenade explodes behind him, tearing through leg and back. Chaos everywhere. Bodies, equipment. Noise like the world ending. He can't remember what happens next, only that someone needed to do something. So though he doesn't remember it, he claws his way to an abandoned machine gun and uses it to repel the enemy until reinforcements arrive. He earns the Distinguished Service Cross, and he lives. Louis Millet, February 1951, near Somni. Louis Millet was already a fighter before Korea. In 1940, outraged by German aggression, he deserts to join the Canadian Army and mans anti-aircraft guns during the Blitz. Later, he transfers back when America enters the war, fighting across North Africa and Italy. Then Korea comes. He hears a message. Chinese propaganda claims Americans are afraid of bayonets. Millet takes it personally. He sharpens bayonets, trains his men. February 1951, near Somni, Hill 180. Outnumbered, pinned down, brutal fire. Millet rallies the understrength company, places himself at the front of 2 platoons, and gives an order that sounds like madness in the age of machine guns. Fix bayonets. And then he leads them, screaming charge uphill, clubbing and bayoneting in the trenches until the enemy flees in disorder. Nearly 100 enemy troops lie dead. By bayonet, Hill 180 becomes Bayonet Hill. Millet later looks back and jokes about how insane it sounds, how stupid it was. But the truth is, that order was a match struck in darkness. And his men followed. Ol Mize, Outpost Harry, June 1953. Sergeant Ol Mize knows something is coming. Night after night he sees trucks, 20, 40, 50, 100, lights on. No attempt to hide. He begs for artillery, air strikes. They tell him it's just resupply. He knows better. Then someone reports the terrain looks wrong. Mize climbs up, looks out and sees bushes within 10 yards of the trenches. Bushes that weren't there before. Then some of them move. He opens fire, bodies dropping. Then the artillery begins. A bombardment so violent he thinks the end of the world has come. He sandbags men in. An artillery round hits behind him, drives him into the timbers. When he comes to, his medic is being killed by multiple attackers. Mize keeps moving, organizing, firing, turning panic into defense. Men lose their weapons. There's no time to scold them. He hands out empty magazines and orders them to load. For 2 hours, he shoots enemy troops as fast as they pour over the trench line, while 2 men feed him ammunition. He builds a defensive perimeter while officers are dead or wounded. He runs patrols from bunker to bunker to make their force look larger. He takes hits from artillery and grenades again and again, keeps fighting, and eventually gets a radio working long enough to call in airstrikes that devastate the enemy. When he reaches the main line afterward, blackened and burned, clothes blown off, men tell him he's going the wrong way. They say, "Sergeant Mize is dead." He answers, steady as stone, "I hope not, sir. I'm standing talking to you." Raymond Davis, rescuing Marines in the frozen mountains, fall 1950. The war looks nearly over. Then China enters with over 200,000 troops. The cold becomes lethal, 40 below zero, wind chill 70 below. Faces ice over, food frozen, water frozen. The Chinese surround the Marines, outnumbering them perhaps 10 to 1. Davis sees Chinese units frozen to death, ill-equipped, wearing tennis shoes, no socks. Then comes the desperate problem. A company seized in a pass separating Marine forces. Multiple rescue attempts fail. Davis proposes a different plan, not the road. Through the mountains, through the Chinese, single file in deep snow, radios frozen, barely working. Long-range fire snapping around them. They form defenses overnight, then at dawn Davis gets his radio operator to a spot where they can see the trapped company below. Somehow, by bayonet, he forces the radio to function. The trapped company was 250 men. Now it's 50. Davis pushes through, calls for artillery, fights through, rescues them, clears the pass, reunites the division, and fights to the sea. Later, Davis remembers something that says everything. 800 Marines, 3 days, 3 nights. Not one complaint, because they were going to rescue other Marines. One for all for one. Raymond Murphy, staying when he could have gone home, Raymond Murphy becomes an officer fast. Korea needs second lieutenants. He's on the front within a week. In early 1953, his commission is ending. He could go home. But a major offensive is about to begin. Murphy stays. Before dawn, while 2 platoons attack uphill, he waits, then decides he can't stay back. He goes up. At the summit, confusion. Company commanders dead or wounded, men trying to pull stretchers out of trenches, wounded piling up. Murphy starts hauling casualties. He starts giving guidance. He starts turning chaos into movement. A mortar fragment wounds him. He refuses medical attention, makes trip after trip back into the worst of it, carrying Marines down. When the assault disengages, he covers the retreat. Then, when the hill is clear, he goes back again with a search party to recover the missing. He's wounded a second time, still refuses relief until every last man is off that hill. Robert Simonek, Outpost Irene, the grenade you don't outrun. Simonek is exhausted, an all-night patrol, 15 minutes of sleep, then ordered out again to Outpost Irene. He brings a Reader's Digest and a can of beer, expecting quiet. Instead, his patrol takes the wrong direction. and nearly walks in behind the enemy. The ambush detonates, mortars, small arms, men dropping. A machine gunner dies behind him. Another man takes a chest shot and blocks entry into a trench, but they force their way in. Simanek spots two enemy officers standing and talking, unaware he's there. He shoots them, then plays a deadly game, pop up and fire, pop down and crawl 10 yards, drawing grenades to empty spaces. Then 2 grenades land at once. He kicks one away. The other is too close. No time, so he throws himself onto it. He wakes injured, alone, crawling down the hill on hands and knees, feet lifted awkwardly behind him, until a rescue squad reaches him and gets him out. Later he tells students something many of these men repeat in different words. They didn't fight for medals. They fought for each other. Ronald Rosser, the trench, the war whoop, and the handshaking in gunfire. Ronald Rosser is the oldest of 17 children. Protective by nature, he re-enlists for combat after his younger brother dies in Korea, coming with vengeance in his heart. January 1952, Iron Triangle, 20 below zero, snow crusted underfoot. He is a forward observer attached to a raiding company attacking a heavily fortified mountain held by roughly a battalion of Chinese. They fight through bunkers, trenches, lines. By the time they reach a staging position, they're down to about 35 men. Officers are down. Commander's face is frozen blood. The colonel orders one last attempt. The captain looks hopeless. Rosser steps forward. "I'll take them up for you, Captain." "How are you going to do it?" "I'm going straight ahead shooting." He charges, gets within 2 feet of the Chinese trench. Looks back. He's alone. Everyone else has been cut down behind him. He pauses, almost amused by fate. "Ron Rosser, you went to a lot of trouble to get here. Let's give it a go." He lets out a war whoop, like a wild Apache, and jumps into the trench. Close combat doesn't slow him. It sharpens him. He flanks a machine gun bunker, crawls up, rolls a grenade into the back door, and then sees 35 Chinese charging him. He considers running, then decides they'll chase him down anyway. So he fights. He assaults the trench repeatedly, killing and wounding enemy soldiers, forcing them back. And in the middle of all that violence, he sees an American wounded, lying just feet from the enemy trench, expecting to die. Rosser runs to him, lifts him, starts down the hill, while the Chinese leap out after him, trying to shoot him and bayonet him. An artillery lieutenant fires around them, covering the rescue. And then, absurdly beautifully, amid the firefight, they shake hands. Because sometimes the purest human moment happens exactly where it shouldn't. Later, Rosser says the Medal of Honor's real honor isn't Congress or the President. It's that a handful of young men who were with you at a difficult time thought you were worthy. What links these stories isn't the medal. It's the same sentence spoken again and again in different voices. We didn't leave anybody behind, on frozen ridgelines and blasted trenches, on hills whose names sounded like curses: East Hill, Heartbreak Ridge, The Hook, Bayonet Hill, Outpost Harry. These men learned what the world looks like when the rules fall away. And in that world they chose each other. Not once, not twice. But every time the flares rose and the night screamed back, every one of these men said the same thing in different ways. They didn't fight for medals. They didn't fight for speeches or ceremonies. They fought because someone was beside them, and they refused to walk away. In the end, that was the rule they lived by. Many of them carried the war home in silence. Some carried scars no one could see, Some carried the faces of men who never made it back, and some never came home at all. But what remains, what still matters, is not the noise of battle or the shine of a medal. It is this: when the world was falling apart, they held each other together. When everything else was stripped away, they chose loyalty over life. And in doing so, they showed us what courage really is. Not the absence of fear, not the promise of glory, but the simple, unbreakable decision: we don't leave our own,